What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today? Happy Thursday, happy Thursday. Come on in, come on in. Y'all know what today is. Today is my favorite day. It is Love Thursdays. That's right, guys. It's Love Thursdays. It's my favorite day. This is the day I give you my opinion on love advice. Before we get started, I do have to say, I am not a licensed therapist, nor do I seek to be one. I am not a doctor, nor do I seek to be one. I'm just a man with a camera and a YouTube channel, just giving you my opinion and life experiences based on what I lived my life in the last 45 plus years, okay? So just to put that out there, I am not a licensed therapist or a doctor. I'm just a man who lived my life and give you opinions based on my personal experiences. So what are we talking about today, guys? Well, before we get into it, I've been putting this subject off for a very long time. And if you looked at yesterday's commentary, I stated that this is something more or less about me than about you guys. You're going to get to know a little bit about me on this 9th week. I've been putting this off. I was supposed to do this commentary, I think, 2 weeks ago. But I decided now I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about my personal life and experiences. And it is what it is, guys, right? And you're going to see the real me. A lot of YouTubers don't like to show the real them, especially when they start early on. This is my 9th week of doing this. And shout out to me for staying focused. I got a lot to learn, a lot to do, and a lot of growing on this channel. And also, I just want to say to you guys, if you consider this channel to be the channel, before we get started, by the way, and no, I'm not editing none of this. Well, before we get started, if this is the channel for you, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button and that notification button. That way, you'll be presented with new content when it's available, okay? Also, share with like-minded people like yourself, all right? Today's subject is about interracial love. And I think I will do 2 parts on this. And how this reflects in my personal life. You know, 2 words I like to use is journey and reflection. Because I do both. There's a journey. We all do it. It's a journey through life and reflection, right? So, you know, I'm a 1970s baby, right? Teenager in the 1980s. And if you want to know how I personally grew up, you watch The Cosby Show. Now, I grew up in the South here in Jacksonville, Florida. But I was kind of like, if you watch The Cosby Show, the Theo character, I'm the same age as that character, you know. So I was a teenager in the 80s, and in the 90s I was a grown man, you know, that type of deal. Well, late 80s to early 90s, I was a teenage adult, you know. And throughout the whole 70s, 1970 to 1980, I was a kid, you know. From the year 1970 to 1980, I was a child, you know. And, you know, for me personally, it was a great experience for me. Yes, there was racism. We didn't have social media like we do now, but there was a lot of great things that I enjoyed as a child growing up. So much so that I would honestly say that things were a lot tamer and better, in my opinion, growing up in the South than it is now. I think it's more racism now than it is when I was growing up in the 80s and 70s. I can almost put money on it. And because everything is out in the open now, you know. Not saying that it wasn't back then, but it was just, everything is just exploited now, all kinds of truths. And that could be a good thing as well. But let me get back to the subject. I don't want to be moving here and there and everywhere about interracial love. So, tell you a little bit about my background, my family. My dad is a foundational Black American. Grew up in Florida. Very wonderful guy. Very wonderful provider. Very educated man. Double master's degree. One of the few Black people that had a double master's degree. My mother had a bachelor. She comes from a mixed heritage of Black and white. There was a lot of white on my mother's side as well as Black, So she comes from that both world. Very, very light skin, straight hair. And, when they met in the 60s, I think from what my parents told me that people thought that she was a brunette white female. And I've seen the pictures. So they thought that was an interracial relationship, but, she's a Black woman. And, with my older sister and my older brother, may he rest in peace. Being the youngest, growing up, we've traveled a lot. And I got a chance to see the world for what it really is and the wonderful world. And the thing that I tell Black people all the time, my Black people, is that sometimes you have to travel. Whether you get a passport or not, you have to travel. Get out of your comfort zone and what you're used to. You got to see the world. Because just go to Canada. Go to certain parts of Canada. Don't just rely on what people say on YouTube. Go to Canada. You will see a difference mentally, psychologically. It don't matter if you go to Canada, Africa, or somewhere else. Your appreciation of the world and your mindset will change when you travel. Trust and believe when I tell you that. And my dad is ex-military. He was under the Kennedy administration. He was there when Kennedy got in office, when Kennedy was assassinated, and when Kennedy left the office. When Johnson became the president because of the unfortunate situation. And my dad has traveled and seen the world. And when you travel and see the world, it's a broader thing. It's not just black and white, guys. Okay? So let's just get back to the subject at hand. So I grew up in the 70s as a child. And for me personally, I can remember having, and my mother recognized this as a child. You know, my youth growing up in the 70s, we would watch TV. And I grew up in the genesis of everything. I grew up when Soul Train first came out. I was about 3 years old in the early 70s. I was about 2 or 3. They had the Jackson 5. They had the Jackson's Hour. Yeah, early 50s, guys. You know, I grew up doing all of this. TV shows, Sanford and Son, Good Times, Jeffersons, All in the Family, Maude, you know, all of these talk show, you know, when Johnny Carson and all of these, Flip Wilson, you know, First Geraldine, all of that. I grew up with all of that, guys. Carol Burnett variety show. I grew up in all of this stuff. Chico and the Man. You understand what I'm saying? I grew up when these shows were in syndicate. I remember when it transitioned from All in the Family to the Jeffersons. You had all of these different shows. I forgot the name of this military show. It was Smash. Smash. What's the name of it? Based on the Korean War. I was a child watching this, dude. Ladies, I was a child watching this on a Zenith TV. black and white. Then it converted to color in 1975 when I was 5 years old. Walter Cronkite was the guy that was reporting the Vietnam War when I was 4 years old, and how the war is now ending. Richard Nixon was the president. I was 2 and 3 years old when all this was about, guys. And Gerald Ford came in, and the assassination attempt on Gerald Ford by one of the Manson people, the Manson girls. I grew up during these times, sitting there watching TV. Young man with a curly afro with the striped shirts. I grew up during these wonderful times, watching TV, whether it was good or for the bad. Asking my mom in 1978, why do all these people are laying out on this field with all these different colors? Why are they sleeping on the ground? No, they're dead, son. Jim Jones massacre. Look it up, Reverend Jim Jones. You know, but it's saying don't drink the Kool-Aid. They committed suicide with the cyanide and so forth. I watched all of this stuff come about. You know, I was there even when they had dance fever. We used to watch cartoon Saturday morning when Mama told us to clean up. And my older brother and I, we used to watch the old episode of Batman from the 60s, and this was in the 70s. And we had this old couch. Me and my brother, we used to be, in the springs on the couch. And, we tore that. It was like a love seat or some kind of smaller love seat. Me and my older brother, we had the towels. I was Robin and he was Batman. So I had the pink towel on, he had the blue towel on, that kind of thing. And, they had Dance Fever on for the older teenagers. When we went to New York, I got a chance, when we drove through there, my dad was known for having R&Vs, Winnebagos. That was the style back then. So 75, he had a smaller Winnebago, then he upgraded to the bigger ones, which are like 200,000 a day. Back then it was 32,000, which was a lot of money in 79 and 1980. That was a lot of money, financing that. And just so much wonderful living growing up, in the 70s. I got a chance to, when we went through New York, to see Studio 54 and all these adults. It was blacks, Puerto Ricans, Italians, Irish, they was waiting in line to get into these discotheques, Just wonderful, man. Just wonderful breath of fresh air back then. Hell, I was there when HBO first came out in 1978. I was 8 years old. And they had the little thing, had 32 channels. BET came out in 81. MTV, it was only 6 hours because they needed funding. MTV needed funding. And then in 1982, both went 24 hours. That was unheard of. Ted Turner Network, I could just go on and on. But in the midst of all this, guys, I found out the person who I was as far as relationships and how I had a preference for white females. And a lot of times when we talk about these subjects, people, especially, and I can only relate to the black community because I'm black. I am foundational black American, right? And, a lot of times people don't like to express their true feelings about things because usually when a person says that they have preferences for a certain type of women with men and men with women, it's always this conversation of, well, it's either negative, where it's like, what, you haven't found that good black woman, or what did black women do to you, or who hurt you, and all this other nonsense. And it's always a negative commentary, like you're divesting or something. And don't get me wrong, there are people who divest because they have a preference for the people in their own race and they felt like they couldn't find it. But then you have people like myself who's saying, no, Nobody did anything wrong to me. At that time, you had a lot of black men and black women who loved each other, who respected each other, way more than today, trust me. You got to understand, it was still in the 70% black and white, black men and women were marrying each other, okay? You had a lot of great black women, very beautiful black women, very respectful black women, and men as well, okay? But sometimes it's just that, you date this type of person, you date that type, and you just find out what's best for you, if that makes any sense. And people, if they don't like the way you're living, which is silly because we're all fucking adults, excuse my language, call you raccoons and all this kind of stuff. But my thing is this: why don't you just mind your own damn business? If you don't like to see people marrying other people or going with other people, why is it so important to you? Why is what I'm doing with my life is important to you? Oh, well, there's a shortage of such and such and such. Listen, let me tell you guys something. In every race, and I'm finna educate everybody, there's always been a history of more women than men. That's the way the Most High Yah God set it up. And he did that for a reason. That's every race. There's always more women than men. Okay? And I can go into the biblical sense and, polygamy and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to do that, especially when the flood happened. I'm going to let you read that for yourself. And in the words of Kevin Samuels, then if that's the case, then your woman need to fight, of your race need to fight harder for you. Instead of saying, I don't need no man, I can do it all by myself. Nobody owns each other. Unfortunately, with slavery, it not only physically damaged black people, but it emotionally traumatized black people as well. And I can understand that, right? But we're living in a different time, people. We're living in a different time. Yes, there's still racism. Yes, the politicians still control the media. But we have more power as people than you think we do. Not only just black people, but just everybody. We have more power over the government than you think we do. And going back, and I get on a tangent sometimes because I'm so passionate about this subject. And, this is part one of this subject. And I'm telling people that, mind your own damn business. If you don't like it, so what? Well, we're trying to reserve and save the black race. And when you get on YouTube and the Black Manosphere and all these other relationship things, who do you see fighting all day long? Black people. Over the simplest, dumbest things in the world, when the Most High Yah God tell you that the man is the head of the household, you're to help me. And a lot of these people say that they're Christians and so forth, and they're trying to fight the word of God when he set it up naturally. The stupidest, dumbest thing in the world. And I think a lot of this is just a money grab, and people do know what the truth are. I get it. You got to get your money grab. And it's entertainment for people. But I'm not going to do that for people. I'm going to just tell you the real. Okay? And I get it that, people are trying to save their race. But see, and this is something that I have an issue with, because people don't use common sense and they contradict themselves. Just like I was talking to some of these pro-blacks the other day. And I asked them, I say, okay, well, who was the original people? Man, you already know, brother, it's black people. Our genetics and so forth is stronger. Okay. And to a certain degree, I can actually believe that, We do have strong genetics. We probably have the strongest genetics ever. So, to a certain degree, even though I'm not a pro-black, I can agree with that. Our genetics are very strong, which is why a lot of the white supremacists don't like us, because they know that that black man's seed is very dominant. Okay? I can understand why they don't like us to mix with white women, especially because that child's going to come out black. All right? The thing I don't understand is why black people get so mad. Because especially you pro-blacks, you fake pro-blacks. Some of y'all are real, some of you fake. You know, you talk all this trash about calling black men raccoons, and you going with Miss Ann, and and putting down the black man and the white women in interracial love relationships. But at the same time, you the same people that come after our daughters or come after our sons. You the same MFs that's come after our children. Because you know you like that light skin, that green eyes. Oh, she's so pretty, isn't she? But that curly, and sometimes they have straight hair. Yeah, you like that light skin and pretty girl. Because when I was a teenager, I used to like the little mixed girls. I'm just being honest with you. I used to like the little mixed girls. But the difference between me and other black people, I didn't put on no front and put down black men and white women coming together, because it took a black man and a white woman to make that beautiful child. And the truth be told, if you really know your history, these same people that's talking all this rhetoric, if you look in their background and their DNA traits, they got a white ancestor, maybe a white grandfather, more than likely a white great-great-great-grandfather. And what happened was that just throughout the generations, they just married through black, but their DNA goes all the way back to slavery. There's a high percentage black people that we have white DNA ancestry because of the traumatic, unfortunately, raping of the black women. Or a lot of times it was just, relations, consensual, which is another subject that a lot of black folks don't like to talk about. Consensual relationships, even during Jim Crow and slavery. And unfortunately, a lot of times it was just taken, and that's another subject within itself. But yeah, I'm going to have a part 2 to all of this, guys. I didn't realize how deep this subject matter go, but I think interracial relationship is a beautiful thing, especially when you can get along with another person. I think it's a wonderful thing. And the funny thing about it is that it actually opens up the variety of black people, because I'm going to tell you something. We come in dark skin, dark brown, brown skin, light brown, light skin, to damn near white. There's a whole variety of black people. So you can have black Asian, Afro-Latino, or whatever race. You have your variety, so why are you complaining? In this capitalist country that we have, everybody gonna see you as black anyway. You can come from a Japanese woman or a white woman, they're gonna still see you as black. Okay? My 4 beautiful children that comes from my ex-wife, she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, good mother to the children, by the way, my ex-wife. We had 4 beautiful children together, 2 boys and 2 girls. When you see my daughters, they're black. And yes, they're all mine. I did a DNA during a divorce. 99.9899 and all that. So, but you could not tell that they were, I mean, they got the good curly hair and they're, light brown skin, and guys be, but nobody's thinking about that when they're seeing my daughters. How cute they are. That's all they, I want to, and that's the whole point I'm trying to tell y'all. A lot of these guys that, they're calling us coons and raccoons and all this kind of stuff, but you look into those pro-blacks background on the internet, you'll see that really light skin. And, sometimes they could come from both parents being black, which is fine. But a lot of times they're mixed. And you look at the parents, the mother is white and the dad is black. Or they'll say she's Afro-Latino. Well, black man had to be with that Latino woman, if that's the case. Or a black man have to be with that white woman or with that black woman to produce that child for whatever race, including black women. Whatever race that black man decided to be with, he had to be with that to produce that child, whether it's a male or female, right? So we just need to stop the cap on that. Because sure as the sun set and rise every day, when you listen, if black folks are the original people, all right, and you have a child with another race of woman, you can be damn sure that that child is going to be black. And what's funny is and I grew up in an all black neighborhood. Trust me, I know how funny my people can be. Oh, you're not black because one of your parents is white, so you don't have nothing to say in this. And what you do is, my mixed black brothers and sisters, if somebody come to you with two black parents and say that, you say this, you say, okay, well, if that's the case, then we need to come together and we just need to have a mixed race of people. Watch their reaction. Oh no, you're black too, blah, 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 you're black too. Because we have this thing that you're going to leave us behind and you think you're better than them, when everybody else looking at these mixed black kids as being black. It don't matter if you come from two black parents or a black parent and another race. America will always see you as black. Okay? You're black. Everybody always see you as black. And you are black. Don't matter if one of your parents is black and one of your parents is white, one of your parents is black and one of your parents is Jamaican or whatever, African or whatever situation. Black is black. If you're biracial, you're still black. You're always going to be seen as a black person. Even if you're a very light-skinned woman, you come from a white man and a black woman situation, where I've seen women who look like they were white. You're black. We have the dominant trait, so we're black people. No matter if it's one parent black, one parent white, or both parents are black, you are black. You're a black American. It is what it is, guys. You're still black. On this commentary, I want to go into more positive details about how I grew up and how my relationships were, both the positive and the negative, and also give a solution to this whole society thing on how we can make interracial relations better and more acceptable, because there's nothing wrong with being acceptable. Actually, it is acceptable more so than it was 40 years, 45 years ago, without being isolated. Because the truth be told, everybody mixed with everybody, guys. It's just that a lot of times on media, they just make a big deal out of black men dating white women. And people fall into that trap every time. And the white supremacists are like, okay, these people are not too bright, but okay, fall into it, sure. And these are the same people. And I've heard black and white people say they may not agree with the relationship between the man and the woman, but they sure do produce the best looking children. And it's kind of like an idiot savvy about the whole thing. It's a catch-22. You don't like the man and the woman that's producing that beautiful child, but you want to be in that child's face when they get adult age. And my whole thing is this: if you're a black person, even if you don't agree with interracial relationship, if you respect other people, then I don't mind you dating my daughter, black man. But if you one of these MFs that's downgrading the man and the woman that made that child, then you keep out of my daughter's face. Keep out of my daughter's face. I don't mind my daughters dating anybody of any race, including blackness, because we as black men, we go through a lot on a daily basis anyway. But you're going to have respect for the people who made these beautiful children. Whether if it's a black man and a white woman or whatever, black man or whatever race he decided to plant the seed with, you're going to have respect for us. Because if it wasn't for us, that beautiful girl that you're trying to get at would not be there. Right? Now, this is going longer than I expected because I have a lot to say about this subject matter. I'm going to get the bad and the ugly out on part 1. And then next Thursday, yes, I'm going to make you guys wait next week. We're going to talk about all the beautiful, positive stuff. That's what I'm going to do. So this one, I'm going to get the bad and the ugly out. I had to get all this stuff off my shoulder first. And then I'm going to tell you about my personal experience with interracial love on part 2. So let's just get the bad and the ugly out. And I just want to tell you a quick story that's a true story. About 7 or 8 years ago, there was one of these brothers, it was a couple of brothers out there. You know how they go out to the red lights and they're Islamic and they wear the bow ties and so forth. And it'd be hot out there and they're out there, giving the good news or whatever the situation is, selling newspaper, asking for donations. And, I get it that the Nation of Islam, you clean up your life. I think it's a beautiful thing. I'm not Islamic at all. I'm Christian. There's a lot of stuff I disagree with. And, I don't agree with a lot of the teachings. But I do respect the fact that they do help a lot of the brothers and sisters and they work with them where they're at, and there's a lot of discipline that goes with them, so I can respect the discipline, the cleanup part, and how they strive to do better. So with that part and that kind of teaching, I do agree with that. But what I don't agree with is the segregation part, because like I said, if you look in a lot of these people's backgrounds, and you shake that tree, there's going to be other races of people going to fall out of it. And that's all I'm going to say on that. But anyway, back to the story. This young man proceeded to come to my car at the red light. And, I knew this was going to happen. And, he was saying, I want to give you good news. And look, they all say the same thing. I've heard the story hundreds of times in the last 30 years, okay? And this young man was about 27, I want to say, late 20s. Here I am, a 40-something year old man. So he's going to approach my car. And I rolled the window down. I was respectful, and I was just going to give him a donation. Maybe he'll just go away, whatever you're doing. I'm just, I'm not into it, but here, just to get him away. But he proceeded, and it was a long red light, by the way, guys. He proceeded to talk to me and so forth, and he said some disrespectful things, and he was just like, look, blah, 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 this and that. And he was bringing up slavery. And I said, yes, sir. It was a terrible thing. But he was just saying this, all white people are this and all white people are that. And I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, yes. I said, so if my grandmother is white and my mother is biracial, what does that make me? Then he jumped back and looked at me. And I said, because I love my grandmother. And I tested him too. I tested his heart and where he was coming from. And I said, she was a good person. She's passed away. She was a good mother. She was a good grandmother. I said, you can't put all in nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Because I said, through my journey through life, there's good and bad, and people choose to do good and people choose to do bad. And I said I had just as rough as time with black people as I did with white people, and you can bet your bottom dollar I have. I said you can't put all white people in this conversation. I said you can't do that. And then he proceeded to say, well, your grandmother was a half a devil, and your mother's a devil, and your mother's a half a devil, and you probably a quarter of a devil. And he just went on and ranting and on. And I'm looking at this guy. I said, well, first of all, when you came up to me before I told you my lineage, I said, first of all, you was calling me brother and this and that. Now you calling me the N-word. You calling me all this other stuff. I said, you're no worse than the Klan. You're no worse than the racist people out there. And I said, let me pull over to the side. And I pulled over, and then the senior guy that was out there, he had to be in his 50s at the time. He was seeing what was going on, and he was seeing the old boy popping off his mouth while he had the newspapers in his hand. I'll never forget that. And he was thinking I was going to come out with a Bama or something, some kind of weapon or something. But I came out and I said, no, I'm not going to do anything. I said, because if I was going to do something by him insulting me and calling me names and stuff and calling my people name, I would have just opened the door and knocked this little skinny, because he was skinny and he had the papers. And see, I was assessing the whole situation at the time. I was looking him up and down because I come from combat training. I wasn't in the military, but I have friends that were Navy SEALs. That's just another. And I was a kickboxer, second degree black belt. A lot of y'all didn't know that, but anyway, that's not the here or there. But I was assessing the situation, but I was just there to talk to him and to educate the brother, because I'm an older gentleman. I'm in my 40s. And I was just trying to bring knowledge to him. I wasn't trying to come at him in any kind of way. I just want him to understand that, yes, it's good that, because before I drove up to him, he was preaching really loud. I think he had like a little speaker thing, what they call it, the hand horn or whatever, about how he had struggled through this and struggled with, I think, some type of substance or drug. And I was happy that he got his life together, but you're not going to come at me some type of way neither, because I'm going to tell you something. I got a friend who's biracial. I think he's about 48. At the time, he might have been 40. He's 48 now. This guy, his dad is black and his mother is white. And a lot of times with black folks, they think that because you're biracial or light skinned, that you're soft and everything. But this dude has been to jail twice and prison once. I taught him martial arts trained with him back in the early 90s when he was, well, mid 90s when he was, and a lot of y'all didn't know I did martial arts, but, you know, and we sparred together. You know, he was a teenager at the time, but he even said he really learned how to combat when he went to prison because people was trying to extort him because he was so light skinned with curly hair, but he had to put that work in, you know what I mean? He had to, you know, use them hands, and he was good with them hands. And I told this guy, I said, look, if you come at him like that, you know, because this guy, he learned in prison how to defend himself. And I said, look, you know, you got to talk to this young man on how he needs to present himself to people, uh, you know, because not everybody is going to be putting up with stuff like me, you know. And I told the senior guy, I said, look, because if that would have been him, brother, let me tell you, that guy would have put them hands on him. You hear me? And when he was in prison those 3 years, he was buff. You know, he done been in a lot of fights, a lot of scars. And it would have took an act of God or somebody like me to pull him off him. Because he would have really seriously hurt that guy from the Nation of Islam. He would have hurt him. Especially by his mother, you know, and she's a white female. She's she has cancer, but right now it's in remission right now. He's dealing with all of this stress with finding a job and all that. And then you're going to pop off and call his mother a devil and call him a half a devil? Nah, he wasn't trying to hear that. And he would have brought it to you. He would have put hands on you. Trust me when I tell you. And he would have really seriously hurt that guy. And that's why I told the senior guy, and the guy was like, okay, you know, we'll talk to him, blah, blah, blah. But see, me, you know, I understand where people's mindsets are, and I try to work with people where they are, because my intention was just to educate the brother. I wasn't trying to hurt him or anything like that. I was just trying to get him to see other point of view. You know what I mean? Because that's what, you know, I try to settle situations with talking with people. And I come from a sales background and turn an ugly situation into a positive situation. That's how I work. But other people don't do that. Especially one of my boys I grew up with, he would have put hands on him for real. You know, but like I said earlier, I'm not that kind of person. I would have, you know, even though I've had that combat training, and I have, I like to talk to people because I love people. Even if I don't agree with what you're doing or your religion or whatever you're trying to do, I still love people of all races. I do. Even if people don't like me, I still love people of all races, including my own, which is black people. And I care about people. So I was just trying to get him to understand that you just can't just go up to people like that and pop off at the mouth, because you don't know who you're dealing with, right? And I just, you know, I resolved the situation. I think I gave a couple of dollars to the senior guy, and he said, do you want a paper? I said, no, I just wanted to show my respect, even though I don't agree with what you guys are doing out here 100%. I was just trying to resolve the situation and just move on. And that's just the type of person I am. Even though I didn't agree with it at all, I could have just got in my car and left, but I was just like, they out here in this hot sun. You know, I'm a Christian. You know, I profess to, you know, the most on the Christianity, and I just left it alone. You know, and I just moved on. Sometimes it's better just to resolve stuff instead of hyping stuff up and making it worse than what it is. And that's where our society is. Then the police would have got involved and all this kind of stuff, and then it could have been a tragedy. And I just wasn't trying to get through all that. I was just trying to get in my car. I gave the money, get in my car, and just move on with it. And like I stated earlier, guys, interracial relationship is a beautiful thing if you give it a chance. If that's not for you, okay. Just be respectful for other people. That's all I'm saying. Just be respectful to other people. You don't have to get into a relationship with interracial and so forth. Just be respectful to other people. If that's not the world for you. That's all I'm saying. My brother, he was kind of like he was a good looking guy. He was like 6'2". He kind of reminded me of Christopher Williams. He didn't look like Christopher Williams, the guy in my dream. He was on New Jack City. He was a good looking guy like him with the curly hair and tall. He didn't look like him, but he just reminded me of him. And women loved him, and he had a preference for black women. You know, he loved black women. He don't had dark skin, light skin, real light skin, brown skin. He loved them all, guys. And every woman wanted him. The Hispanic women definitely loved him. All of those beautiful chicas, they loved him. You know, I was like, man, that's a beautiful lady, Hispanic girl there. Why don't you try her? It's like, yeah, but I like the sisters, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he also respected the fact that I had a preference for white females. He, you know, even though that wasn't for him, he always protected me because I was his little brother. And he loved it. And the thing about it is that he watched more TV than I did, and all of these predominantly white shows. And people say, because people always say, well, you know, if all you see is how white people are so, you know, better, and you know, you're gonna think that psychologically that they're better and that you're not. That's you know, that being black is being negative. That's not true, because I grew up. Listen, it's just up to the individual. And they tried me with the doll test at the school in the 70s, you know, who's better. And I knew what was going on. And I told my dad what was going on. I had enough common sense as a child knowing what was going on, okay? And my cousins and my older brother, they grew up around that. We all grew up watching Soul Train, Posner, Positively Beautiful for the hair products for black women, you know. And it just came down to one thing. Even though my brother seen a lot of beautiful white females on TV and he admired them, he still, in the end, wound up dating and marrying and having children with a black woman because that was his preference. And so did my cousins. Me, on the other hand, I just chose a different direction because that was truly who I liked for themselves, not because they were better than anybody, which is not the case at all. Nobody is better than nobody. Everybody's got flaws of every race. It's just that I like them for themselves. I just like them for themselves. It's just that I wasn't a white man. I'm black, and I'm proud to be black. So with that being said, guys, I've been rambling on, getting you guys deep into this conversation. This is probably the longest YouTube content that I had. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a part 2 for you guys, okay? And I'm debating on should I do this on next Love Thursday, part 2. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into details about me growing up and the women that I had in my life, and I'm gonna go deep into this conversation. So we got all of the negative stuff out of the way. It's just gonna be all about my personal emotional experiences in this interracial love. And I want you guys to tune in on it, okay? And once again, if this is the channel for you, I advise that you please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button and click that notification button. That way you'll know when new content is being presented. Also share with like-minded people like yourself. I'm getting dry mouth here. Also remember, I'm not just Tim, but I'm Tim's On Demand. All right. Now, with that being said, I want you guys to go ahead and let yourself out. Go ahead, let yourself out. Pull that door too so no flies and critters won't come into my house. And look forward to part 2 to this, because now it's going to be all positive, emotional, and I'm going to go into details about my relations in this whole interracial love thing. But until then, guys, I want you guys to have a fantastic evening, afternoon, night, and I'll see you on the next show.